was a movie and it started now, forget about whatever financial disasters you've had, personal failures, relationship failures. What would the hero of your life's movie do right now?
Hello and welcome to Dad's Dating After Divorce. I am your co-host, Jude Sandoval, founder of the Divorce Dadvocate community, and my co-host, Dallas Bluth, relationship and dating coach from Black Box Dating. Dallas, how you doing?
Doing fabulous. Good morning, June. How you doing?
I am doing great. So this is round 2 of our attempt to record this episode. Those of you who are listening, it's not all glamorous red carpet all the time. Sometimes it is starts and stops and challenges. And so, yeah, we had just like everything going against us the last time around. Headphone issues, internet issues. It was just a mess. And we got halfway through and just scrapped it. And then you started a DIY project. So you started your man project after that.
Yeah. We had to do a mercy kill on that episode. We just had to put it down. It was not going pretty. So I was thinking about it. We were talking about options, and the problem on my end was the Wi-Fi upstairs isn't talking well enough with the router downstairs. And I was like, I've got a long drill bit. I'm going to order an Ethernet cable and I'm going to fix this. Yeah, like 5 hours later, I'm up through the attic in the insulation, dropping down through closets. Yeah, but the internet is way, way better. So,
it is so good. You're smooth. I see your lips actually moving and everything. So I don't have to guess at what you're saying and then time that delay or anything. So, well, good. Well, let's jump into our topic. We've got a fun episode. I think it was fun talking about it for the half hour that we did before we scrapped the last episode. So I think we can dive maybe even deeper and refine it even better than we did last time. So it's going to work out for you guys, is what I'm saying. But so the background on this is I was watching a movie this week. I was picking a movie this weekend, and I clicked on The Materialist. But I thought that I was watching The Brutalist, which is the Adrian Brody movie that's well acclaimed and whatnot. I know sometimes I have those brain pauses, and so I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm thinking, when is Adrian Brody going to show up in this movie? He's nowhere to be found, and it's not the right movie. So anyway, started watching it. The premise of the movie is there's a woman who is a dating coach or a matchmaker, not a dating coach. There's a big difference. A matchmaker in New York City, and she meets a very wealthy guy. She has an ongoing kind of on and off relationship with her ex, who is a waiter, aspiring actor, etc. And the movie plays out about relationships, about masculine, feminine nature, dating scenarios, environments, etc. I want to share, and I'll just say, Dallas, the whole time I was thinking, these people need Dallas. They need Dallas. They need to talk to Dallas about how to handle this situation the whole time.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be able to help a lot of them. They've got their priorities so strongly aligned in a certain way, being in New York and all of that. I'm like, I don't know that they really want to hear what I have to say. Yeah.
Right. And I think we'll dive into that. There's some extreme polarities in the movie because it is Hollywood, obviously. So they got to play to some of that. But I'm going to share some of the stuff that I liked about it before I start to really destroy it and talk about the things that they could have done better because it was a Hollywood movie, right? So I liked Dakota Johnson. It just off the bat, I think she's an excellent actress. She's nice to look at, and everything I've watched her in is really great. So, and actually, I think all 3 of the main actors, Pedro Pascal, Chris Evans, did a really good job in their roles and portraying the characters that they were. I liked the how it accurately portrayed kind of just the innate masculine and feminine desires of men and women, and they said it out loud. They didn't just allude to it. I thought that was good, although I think that they could have expanded upon it, and they didn't. We'll get to that. I think it also kind of accurately portrayed the dating environment out there. Now, it was set in New York City, so it's probably kind of its own little enclave of how you date. So there is some of that. But for the most part, I think it delved into some accuracies around dating. And then the other thing, it was honest in not only how they talked about masculine and feminine desires, but also they talked about they touched on childhood traumas and how those things might play into relationships. Now, that was a huge missed opportunity, I think, where they could have gone into some more stuff, and we'll talk about that too here. But they did touch on it, so I appreciated that. So those are some of my big likes about the movie. What were some of the things that you liked?
So one of the things so first of all, I saw it in the theater several months back, so my memory is going to be a little fuzzy, a little hazy. And plus, I had you before we started the recording give me the names of the actors, because boy, do I suck at remembering those names. So I've got a little list here so that I can make sure I've got the right person, for the right role.
Okay.
One of the things that I really liked about it was essentially the two male characters. One of them's very rich and the other one is definitely not. And I like how Dakota Johnson is trying to decide. She thinks she wants this list of things, but it turns out that doesn't actually fully pull her away from the draw to the other guy, her ex-boyfriend. Oh, by the way, spoiler alerts. If you haven't watched the movie, stop now and go watch the movie if you care about because we're going to talk about everything beginning to end. So, okay, fair game. Yeah. I really like the fact that she struggled, she came to a certain decision about what she wanted, and that's coming from her head, but her heart really wasn't satisfied even when she was getting, the rich guy, even when she had his complete undivided attention and he was doing everything the way that we want a woman, that we think a guy is supposed to do it. Like, even when she got it, she caught the big fish. She wasn't satisfied.
The unicorn, as they call it in the movie.
Exactly. Yeah, the unicorn. And so I think I like the fact that it basically had this undertone of like, well, you might think you know what you want, but what's actually effective, what actually tugs on your heartstrings is might have a different plan.
Cool. Well, that leads perfectly into what I did not like about that, and particularly on.
I know there's that.
Oh my God!
There's so many angles.
Yeah, you've already heard a half hour of this, so you know that I could probably talk for 2 hours on this. So I want to put this into context for dads listening that are thinking about dating, also that have children, because Hollywood has such an influence, and watching these movies has such an influence. This is something that I have for a long time been very conscientious about with my daughters, is watching movies and talking about some of these dynamics that come up in movies, because these dynamics are not always portrayed in a healthy manner. I think they did a good job with this show, with this movie, but I think that there are underlying things that are maybe misconceptions, if you want to look at it from a nice light. It's some as just modern feminist propaganda that is undermining relationships between men and women, and it's from a specific segment of people that are in the world that have an agenda, right? Okay, we're not portraying every woman as a modern feminist that hate men, etc. Okay, let's just get that out of the way before everybody starts sending emails and getting pissy about stuff. That's not what we're saying, but we're saying that there is stuff that was portrayed out there that is not healthy for relationships. That's also why you and I are here doing this, that we can help people, because we've also been in these unhealthy relationships. We've exhibited some of these unhealthy traits ourselves, and we're trying to help people through this. So this is good content for the dads listening to be able to help with their relationships, but also to talk to their kids if they're like, I have teen daughters watching these movies and saying, what do you think about that character? And or as opposed to this, or do you think that could happen a better way? So on that note,
I really like that, Jude, because the thing is, like, Hollywood or whatever group of people out there has their certain values. And if we don't proactively tell the young people around us, our children, if you have children, I don't, But if we don't make it really, really clear that, hey, these values are being pushed on you, are you sure these are actually the values that you want to live by? If we're not active about it, passively, they will absorb stuff from movies, and then particularly social media and TikTok. Whatever just boils up to the top of the channel is what's going to infiltrate their thinking. So bravo, and absolutely important for every dad out there to be very intentional.
Yeah, yeah, and so that kind of brings me to some of the dislikes that are on that. And guys, you're gonna hear Dallas and I talk about this probably every episode all the time, is being intentional and knowing and understanding what your values and your beliefs are, because it's absolutely impossible, and I'm going to say impossible, to have a really healthy, functioning relationship with somebody if you don't know what that is and you're not able to communicate those and work together. There's so many complexities that go into dating and having a relationship, particularly post-divorce, blending families and all that. You've got to have that stuff in line. You've got to know some of that's ongoing, right? Some of that you're learning or refining, et cetera, but really trying to get that dialed in is incredibly important. So on that note of her not knowing what she truly wanted, right? Like, so part of the movie in the beginning is she breaks up with the guy. They're in their 20s. He's a waiter, aspiring actor, and he's broke, and she hates the fact that he's broke, and she hates herself for hating the fact that he's broke, which I feel like that was disingenuous in the fact that is just something that is innately a feminine need, is to feel that a man can be a provider, be secure. There are some innate things that the feminine nature needs and wants, and so that troubled me that they were villainizing her, and that's kind of the whole point of the movie called The Materialist, that they have all these materials. They keep talking about checklists, but I just did not like the fact that they don't accept that as this is how we're designed. This is how we're wired.
Right. And if I can just jump in and say there is a counterpart on the masculine side. We're wired to be attracted to women that are fit, in shape, not super overweight. We are. And it's, and I think the word here is superficial. So the idea that the woman, can't stand a guy that doesn't have his financial act together. She hates herself because she sees it as superficial. It's not superficial. It's fundamental to her feeling of safety and security being with him. I don't remember what the problem was. I think it had something to do with a car breaking down or something like that. And then later in the movie, she comes back to him. The guy's still living in the same place that he was 10, 12 years earlier with two roommates, one nasty ass toilet, and it's just like, no woman wants to be in that environment, and it takes money to get out of that environment into another one. It's not superficial. Similarly for guys, it's not superficial that we're attracted to what we're attracted to physically. It's interesting. I lived in Asia for a while, and it's funny. They're very comfortable with the word fat in Asia. Women are fine being told that. They're fine saying it like this. They're like, this is obvious, that this is just a part of life. In America, that is probably one of the worst words you can use today, is to call someone, man or woman, fat. And we're seeing it's like, oh, it's, and as a guy, you're superficial if you're looking at the body and all of that. It's like, yeah, you're actually in denial if you think that her physical body is not important. And I got to say that if women think that that's not important, they're also in denial. The same with a guy. You got to look at your finances. It matters. It's not the end all be all. We don't have to have unrealistic standards, but it's not superficial to say that it is fundamentally important.
Yeah. And so, and that kind of leads, so I want to tie this into the dads listening to some helpful tips and feedback around that. It doesn't mean that you've got to have your 100% financial house in order. It doesn't mean you need to be the Pedro Pascal and be a multi-billion or a billionaire in order to go out and date and find somebody that you can have a healthy relationship. But it does mean that you need to have some of these things in order. You need to know what it is. We when we were talking last time about dating and having the means to date, one of the scenes in the movie is she talks about, well, how he can take her to this extraordinarily expensive restaurant, and she loves how he just signs the check like it's no big deal and just takes it. And his comment was like, well, so what? It's just it's money. I have the money. It's okay. I like doing this. But it's more about the time that I'm spending with you, and I enjoy that. I enjoy it in this environment, but that's not really the point of it, which I think was a very appropriate answer. I liked his character in their portrayal of him being what they call it a unicorn, right? But I would just say that more just of in his masculine, except for the end when they talked about the surgery and making himself taller and that he couldn't love. They just tanked him really at the end of the movie. He was this unicorn through, and he really held himself well. He did all of what he was, what you would imagine somebody in a healthy masculine mindset would be doing. And then she breaks up with him, and then he kind of like falls apart, which I thought was sad, because there are men that are like him. There's lots of men that are healthy in their masculinity like him, that are operating that, we all have our challenges and whatnot, but it's not all smoke and mirrors. There are healthy masculine men out there, right? So I did appreciate that, but and I bring that now to wrap it up, in that you don't have to have a ton of money to do that. You just have to know what you like to do and have the means to be able to do it. Like I was mentioning, I like to do a lot of outdoor stuff. But go ahead, you wanted to interject.
Yeah, so actually, I want to ask you a question. So I've never been married. I'm not divorced. I want you to paint for me a bit of a clear picture of how a man's financial situation changes pre-divorce versus post-divorce. Like, walk me through some of the basic. I mean, like, the words I have in my head are, child support and alimony. Right. And, they both have usually very, very negative connotations around them. Can you like break me into the reality, the world that men face once they're in divorce financially? How does it go?
Sure. So, yeah, no, that's a great question. And I know all the dads out there are going, oh shit, Dallas, let me tell you. And we might have a bunch of comments like right at this timing on this video. But just from a straightforward mathematical equation, it's one household going into two households. And so there your disposable income will go down, and your lifestyle will change, unless you're a multi-million billionaire, right? I mean, that might go from driving a McLaren or Ferrari to a BMW or a Lexus, right? So but that's still a lifestyle change, right? So it might not be vacations in Iceland. It might be vacations in Florida or the Caribbean, right? But there's going to be a change in the lifestyle. And so I think sometimes the other part of it is mentally, emotionally for guys, that's difficult and challenging when you've gone through and you've built, let's say you've built yourself up in your company, or you've created a corporation or a business and you've built that up, and then the lifestyle changes. I know for me, I had created the exact lifestyle that I wanted: the house, the cars, the business, the kids, the neighborhood, the community involvement, all of that. And when that all changed and I got divorced, it just shattered me mentally and emotionally going forward, thinking, hey, I had like exactly what I wanted and I had designed all of it, and now it's completely different. So there's different levels to it.
Okay. So let me jump in here with what I think is, there's two fundamental mindsets that men can have around money. It's basically, one of them is, I have a lot of money. I have the things that I need. I have a certain amount of wealth. And that's how a lot of people at least talk about it in the language is, you are rich, meaning you have money. That's one way of looking at it. And I've never really understood it, because that is temporary. Because, if you have a windfall inheritance, even of like, $1 million, if you don't, depending on which direction you're going and how you look at it, you will burn through that money like there's no tomorrow. I was a landlord for a while. I had 2 tenants that I saw do that. They They had windfalls, one of them right when they moved in, another one while they were renting from me. And I watched them go right back to the position they were in financially within a year, maybe two. But I was like, wow, you don't get those lottery tickets very often in life, the 5-figure, 6-figure lottery tickets. You just don't. So that leads me to the other mindset, which is, where are you going financially? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. So, you had the whole picture you wanted. You had one household. It got like an amoeba, like separated into two cells. Everything had to be divided. Well, I mean, depending on the direction that you're going with things financially, you had to step back, but you're still moving forward. You had to step back, but you're still moving forward. If that is where I am in my heart financially, I'm still going to have a very attractive confidence around my finances, and I'm going to have a coherent story for anybody that I'm on a date with. I'm going to be able to explain, look, I went through this. It was a setback. Everybody understands there are setbacks in life, but this is the track that I'm on. This is where I'm going. Yeah, I'll let you jump in on that.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think.
Well, no, I just want to say that mindset should expand to more than just your finances, right?
100%.
And so when I'm working with dads in private coaching, that's one of the things that we talk about. We've got a 5-step program, but clarifying your vision and direction, that is one of the steps. And because your life is going to change whether you like it or not. So because you're getting a divorce. So what you had, how it was, all that stuff, what I imagine, it's going to change. You do not have a choice anymore. But what you do have a choice about is the direction that you want to move towards. Doesn't mean that is exactly where you're going to hit, but having that, what you said, having that mindset of, hey, I'm going to make more money, or my business is going to be, I'm going to do that. Same thing in your life. And that is that is a masculine trait that we are designed with. Oftentimes, but that's hard, because lots of times that gets conditioned out of us for whatever reason. We lose that. That was my experience. I had totally lost my ability to, and I've got an innately very just like masculine nature, but through my upbringing, childhood issues, etc., that got conditioned out of me to where it was existent until this whole thing exploded and my life completely turned upside down, which was a good thing, right? Because I needed that to happen. It's never a good thing. You don't want that. You don't have to learn that way, but it had to happen for me to do a 180 on my mindset.
That's interesting. So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that the divorce in a certain way woke you up from a somewhat comfortable place, a little bit of a complacent place. And in that comfortable, complacent place were components that you were not happy with, that you were still carrying with you from childhood. Yeah, that's 100%. That's beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So in bringing this back to what we're talking about is when we're looking for your next romantic relationship, it's incredibly important to identify. So where are you at? Working with a coach like Dallas, or somebody that's helping you through your divorce in conjunction with Dallas, or therapist or a coach and Dallas, like that is the optimal way to do some of this self-evaluation and understanding and moving forward. But knowing what you bring to a relationship and what your relational dynamic has been before is incredibly important, because we've talked about this before. I just plugged and played, right? So got divorced, had the ex, just plugged somebody else in to try to keep that whole vision, right? Like I was just going to plug and play. Well, guess what? It was the same type of person that I had just divorced. And I didn't do that once. I didn't do that twice. I did that multiple times until I started to until the heartache was so, because sometimes they say that the divorce is heartbreaking, but that next relationship that you really get into, if that fails, is really, really heartbreaking. It was really, really heartbreaking for me until I figured out, okay, there's a common denominator here. I've got to figure my stuff out before we go and find somebody that's going to be healthy.
Yeah. So bringing it back to the Materialist. So I because the movie was so much about money and finances and all of that. I've asked several women this question. I said, would you rather be with a man that, say, has $10 million, a $10 million net worth, but feels like he's the bomb and has stopped doing much of anything with his life and is more or less kicking back on a beach, just kind of enjoying his lifestyle? Or would you rather be with a man that you feel is really going somewhere interesting and exciting, and you see that he has a ticket to success that he's currently working on and cashing in? I believe pretty much every woman that I've said that to, they're like, well, the money is nice, but the truth is the vitality of the man that is not retired, the vitality of the man that is still on a quest and going somewhere, that is way sexier to them than just the money sitting in a bank account. And the thing that's interesting about this is the money in the bank. So it's a gym analogy. When you see somebody who is like super fit, in shape, we're talking about a dude here, a guy that's super fit, in shape, he's got, good muscles on him. Let's assume he's not taking steroids and, cheating out of it. But even when you are, you still have to work out. When you see all of that, the muscles are a byproduct of the vital person going into the gym doing that work every day. But all we see is the result. Money is very, very similar. When you see somebody that's, got some crazy lifestyle and, they're doing really well, yeah, some of that might be inherited, but usually it's an indication that they're on a healthy track financially, the same way that somebody's on a healthy track going to the gym. That vitality, that track, that discipline, that drive, that passion, that is what really turn women on and make them want to come back for a second, third, fourth date with you. It's not the laurels that you've acquired and that you've sat on top of, you put on top of your head, now you're kicking back in a beach chair. That is not going to turn anyone on for long.
And so tell me what you think about this, Dallas, from a perspective of things that are inherently shared in a masculine and feminine nature. I feel that the sense of adventure or a call to adventure is something that both masculine and feminine are both interested in. And that is a commonality that now we attack it from a different perspective, I feel. But if we want to find something that is a unifying or a commonality between the polarity of masculine and feminine, that would be one of them that I think is a good one for. Give me a second. No, let me let you go on with this one, because it's a great one that we can focus on with women in order to help them to come alongside us and be in this adventure with us in our lives. Go.
Yeah.
Tell us why and how.
I was raising my hand there.
Yeah,
please call on me. I want to talk. Yeah. And because this ties into, I think it was the last episode that we're on, and both men and women want to experience an adventure. However, like you just said, our approach, our orientation to adventure is fundamentally, on a subtle level, rather different. Men we feel alive, we feel healthy, we feel good about ourselves, we feel proud when we strike out on an adventure, when we go out like Odysseus, away from home and go on the grand quest. That's part of, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, is you have to go out, leave the comfortable place in order to do it. Women want to be invited to join in an adventure. And that's tying into the previous episode where we were talking about invitations. Women don't want to have to go from 0 to 15 miles an hour in a 4-wheel drive vehicle, getting out there on the safari. They want a guy to come up to their door with a 4-wheel drive vehicle, already warmed up, oil's checked, tires are ready to go, got all the camping gear they need in the back, and we're like, hey, babe, hop in. That is what women want to experience. And then they get to ride shotgun. They get to be in the passenger seat looking at all the beautiful stuff and having the sense of adventure without having to first create it and then really have full responsibility for conducting it.
Right. Which I think the movie gets right with what you described in her choosing the Chris Evans character because he's aspiring to be an actor and he's still trying and he's still slugging through doing his theater work and whatnot, which was attractive to her. And this was really just, this is where I get irritated and annoyed with Hollywood. The Pedro Pascal was like a Nepo baby, right? And his mom had started the venture capital firm, which I'm going to point out these statistics because it's just so annoying to me. I looked up how many venture capital firms have been started by women. It's like 3% in the world, right? So they find the most ludicrous thing. And then I looked up how many billionaires are self-made versus inherited their money. 2/3 of billionaires. So the majority of billionaires are self-made. So they portrayed it accurately in her choosing the one that was going to bring the adventure and has the direction, but they flipped it the wrong way. He would be the one all day long, and in real life, he's going to be the one that she chooses, and it's going to be because he's self-made and because he has created the life that he has wanted. Usually, now that's nothing against the actors and aspiring actors and struggling theater people, et cetera. But it was flip-flopped in the movie.
So I was born and raised in LA, Santa Monica specifically, and
Okay.
I'm fourth generation from Santa Monica. So like we were there long before really Hollywood was kind of doing its thing, long before we were like all attractive people from the other 49 states are like importing themselves into Southern California. Long before that, like my great grandparents had like a fish market or something. I don't know exactly the story. So there's a little bit of a question of the aspiring actor and, chasing the dream. I mean, geez, I was a music major, I understand having the passion for an art, but you need to take care of business also. Like, if you're a guy and, even if you're in the entrepreneurial world, and you're starting a business or you have some kind of calling that is outside the standard safe 9-to-5 track. If, whether it's artistic, whether it's entrepreneurial, whether it's that you don't want to be tied to the man and you don't want to have to show up to an office every day, that's all fine. But you need to be an adult and a grown-up and realize that you need to provide certain basic standards. I guess we can say that a certain basic level of stability, a certain basic level of lifestyle, and a certain basic level of achievement, really, in social eyes, in order for you to feel like women are going to find you attractive. The Chris Evans, thank you. I got my list. I'm looking at the actors' names. This totally worked. Chris Evans doesn't do that. Chris Evans is living the life of a mid-20-year-old, aspiring actor. When he's in his mid-20s, that makes sense. But then you move in, 10, 12 years later, he's still in the same place. That is the problem. He didn't grow up. This is, I believe, what women call the Peter Pan syndrome. They're sick of guys that just don't grow up. They don't step into the adult role and take care of responsibilities. And guys, you can have them both. You can have your dreams, you can have your ambitions, but you need to take care of business as well if you want to be taken seriously.
So that's a great point, and I want to tie that into why oftentimes women don't want to date divorced fathers. And I would say that the conversations that I have had with women that don't want to do that is because they don't want to deal with that. It's often a dad that has not been taking accountability for what is life is about with his children, getting his act together, and might even and she just doesn't want to get wrapped into having to be the mommy to kids, mommy to him, and all of the stuff that goes into that dynamic. Like we said earlier, it's already a complex dynamic, and for a woman to have to get into that, so that just goes. And again, this doesn't mean that we have to have all of our stuff together, but we've got to be working really hard to do it. And that takes me to another point, which is it's sometimes I would have to disagree a little bit with you can have all of it exactly how you want it. So let me just put that caveat to it. You can have everything you want, just maybe not exactly how you want it, because there's going to be constraints that you have as a divorced dad dating. You're going to have responsibilities with children. You've got to be working and bringing an income in enough to be able to support yourself, maybe child support your kids, the lifestyle that you need for your kids. So there is going to have to be, and I'll use an example from my life, is when I had my daughters full time. There was a time frame where I was a single, 100% single dad, taking care of my daughters 100% of the time. My business floundered because doing that full time, it was a choice between taking care of the kids, and they were younger, right? Like elementary school, and being able to dedicate the full time into a business and being there the hours that you need. It was a choice that I had to make. So you can, but it doesn't mean that I didn't have a great relationship with my daughters. We didn't have fun. I was still also dating, just in a different context. And my business, I survived, right? So the business, I didn't make I've made multi-millions of dollars. I've lost multi-millions of dollars. That was not a time I was making multi-millions of dollars, right? So that was a time where it was just getting by financially, but it was the mindset then that had to change, right? Myself.
Yeah. I want to echo, you were talking about the things that women get turned off on when they're thinking about dating a single dad. And I think the common theme underneath that is the women are imagining, perceiving, projecting themselves into a situation, and they're feeling tired by it already. They're feeling burdened. They're seeing responsibilities that they don't want to have. And I think, and feel free to, speak into it from your own experience. But I feel like there's a certain, if you want your success rate to go up as a single dad dating, you need to really present your situation as a situation that's not going to burden the woman on the other side of the table. That you are handling it, you're taking care of it financially. You're not looking for somebody, you're not hoping that somebody's going to come over and start doing laundry and taking care of kids so that you can go back to chilling out on the couch. And I'm not saying that you ever did that, but women have a perception of men doing that in domestic environments with children. I think as a single dad dating, you have to really do a good job of presenting a low load offering to them. They're not seeing how this is, if they step into this and they start getting involved with it, that nothing is going to be put onto their backs, nothing is going to burden them before they really want that to be the case. What do you think?
Exactly. I think you hit it. I think you hit the nail on the head. And so what I will typically do is I will describe the environment and the situation. And now I've had a highly contentious, high conflict divorce and post-divorce. So I've had to be very conscientious about how I manage that and how I insulate somebody from dealing with that, which I feel I've done a decent job around. But I will be upfront about that it's been high conflict, that it is contentious, but you don't, and I'll say it, you don't have to worry about it. There might be little things here and there that pop up, but as long as we're communicating about stuff, then there's nothing that we can't deal with. Now, saying that is one thing, but I do that. I do that early on maybe one of the first few dates when we start talking about environments or what was your divorce, why did it happen? You always get those questions, but I will usually verbally convey that. Then, unless you're actually backing that up and they're seeing that that's in fact the case as you go along dating, then they're not going to open up and then feel safe and vulnerable with you and take that to the next level. There's going to be a time of having to wait it out, kind of see if that's true. There oftentimes, and if they're not, I would say that's a sign to look at. If they're not being cautious first and they're just diving right in and want to be like stepmom right away, that might be an indication that you got to pull back the reins and say, maybe she's got something else going on that you don't know about yet, right? So,
absolutely, yeah. When it comes to lost my thought. Sorry, totally lost it. Keep on going, Jude.
Yeah, no, well, and that is important. those conversations are important to have, and your intentionality is important to know going into dating with somebody. So, and so that goes back to know what your values are, but then when you know what your values are, know then what you are wanting to accomplish by dating. It could be just companionship, and that's okay, because I can't tell you the number of times that I've heard guys, and I've had these conversations. Hey, I want to enjoy time together. I'd like to do stuff, but I just want companionship right now. I'm just not mentally emotionally available to you. I'm not going to be that person right now for you, and you just need to know that. So that doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It might be 3 months, it might be 9 months. I know I'm just not there. Or it could be, hey, I've done the work. I've been dating for a decade. I'm ready. I really know what I want. And this is what I'm looking
back
for.
On the market. I'm in the shop window with a price tag on my neck. Yeah.
Exactly. Which, that scares lots of women off, right? Because here's the thing to understand, guys, is women are going through a lot of this same stuff too. And they're thinking some of this stuff, but it's incumbent upon us to lead these conversations and in turn lead the relationship.
Yeah, and leading those conversations begins with putting yourself out there first, what I call being vulnerable first. It might be a stretch of the word vulnerable, but I'm going to put myself out there so she can see it. The fundamental thing, I believe you touched on it, was women need to feel safe in order to move forward. The women that don't need to feel safe and just do and jump right in with both feet, yeah, that's something to watch out for. But the thing that's interesting, when you're a single dad and you're dating, you've got double duty in that sense of security. So the first question is, am I safe with this man? Can I trust this man? If I say no to this man, will he listen? Or is he going to get, too emotional or too horny, to hear what I'm saying? That's a question that a woman's going to ask with every single man that she's on a date with. The second element that she has to feel safe with is your situation. When you're a single man with no kids, the situation's pretty simple, really. There's not a whole lot coming with it. However, she is, and women are much more environmentally and socially driven than men are. They know there's another parent. They know that these kids are traveling back and forth, and they're highly sensitive to what that environment is going to be like. And they don't want to absorb that crap. So they're asking first, am I safe with this man? But then they're asking, am I safe in this situation? Am I safe with these kids, with this ex, with all these different elements? And so it's not enough to establish to the woman she can trust you as a man. You need to show her that she can also trust the situation that she's walking into by being involved in your life. What do you think about that,
Yep.
Jude? Does that resonate with your experience?
100%. And the only thing I'll add to that is that takes time. So that takes time, and I highly, highly recommend taking that time to allow that to unfold in a natural way, to allow her to see that and feel that before getting really physically involved or really intimately involved or starting to introduce kids and all that stuff. Really try to take your time. And if you think you're going slow, go about 50% slower, more, right? Okay. So because that's just natural. We want to jump, and that's why we procreate, right? But if you think you're going slow, slow it down even more.
Yeah. What do they say in motorcycle school? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Right.
I think it's very true when it comes to dating. When you slow it down more, it's going to be smoother. And the smoother it is, the faster it's going to end up going. So this actually reminds me, Dr. John Gray, the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, old book, 30 years old now, I think, something like that. But there's one line that he puts in there that is, men are like blowtorches and women are like ovens. So, we want to jump in there. We're the blowtorch, turn the valve, whoosh, you've got this big burst of flame, and you go from 0 to all hot real fast. And then also similarly, we can go from all hot to not interested just as fast. So we're like blowtorches on and off very quickly. Women on the other side of the spectrum are more like ovens. I want my frozen pizza. However, that oven is going to take a minimum of 20 minutes before I can even take the pizza out of the freezer, get the plastic wrap off of it, put it on the cookie sheet, slide it in, and then start to cook. I mean, like we're talking in, like 40 minutes, it's like that's an oven. And so in the dating scenario, I mean, men are like, I guess you could call it fast food. It could be like picking up a pizza versus warming up the oven to cook a pizza and all of that. But the flip side, and I'm sure most men listening to this podcast can relate to this, that women will hold on to that heat. They will hold on to that chemistry. They will hold on to that desire. When you're like, girl, why are you still here? Like, I am not feeding you anymore. Like, I unplugged the oven a while ago and it's still hot. Yeah. That's the wonderful nature of ovens. They take a long time to warm up, but once they're there, you can count on them to really be there. And then a lot of times I think is where women get frustrated with guys is they're wondering why, how can this guy just suddenly go cold on me? How can this guy suddenly lose interest? Because in their nature, once they're warmed up, they're going to retain that heat and that interest for quite a while. So just want to throw that out there.
I like that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I like that. Actually, although I'm not going to upgrade. I'm going to change that analogy for guys, and that's to a smoker. So I like smokers and smoking meat, right? I know there's probably some guys
we were
listening
talking cigars here for a minute, and I'm like, where are you going?
No, to a smoker, and it's the same concept. It's low and slow. You're taking your time, and it's really filling up the meat with more flavor, right? It's going to add more flavor. It's going to add more moisture. It's going to last longer. It takes significantly longer, right? It takes significantly longer. It's kind of the same oven concept, right? Because you're doing it really, really low, but I don't even think anybody bakes anything at 200 degrees or 225 like a smoker. I mean, you're literally taking 5 times the amount of time that it would take. Think of that relationship the same way as your smoker and everything that you're adding into that in that time, which is you're adding water for moisture, you're adding more chips for smoke, you're adding smoke. That's all enhancing the relationship. And while you're doing that, you're adding a rub on the meats too. Like there's so many different things that you're doing. You might wrap it for a while at a certain point. There's so many different things. But while you're doing that, what is happening is exactly what Dallas just described, which is then you're creating this like this almost container for her, right? Mm-hmm. Then that she is like, oh wow, yeah, I feel really good. I feel really comfortable. I feel really safe in this, in this smoker with all of this stuff, right? I mean, come on, guys can get to this one, right? Like, I'm not gonna be able to smoke meat anymore, Dallas, without thinking about my next relationship. So this weekend when I'm smoking some meat, I'm gonna be thinking about this now.
Yeah, and what you're doing that entire time is you are literally transforming that meat. And if you try to transform it in a flash, you're going to burn the outside and the inside is not going to be cooked. What you're talking about is a slow transformation so that it can permeate the entire subject matter, piece of meat in place of woman. Because that's the thing is we do want to transform them into someone that is way into us. When we're a stranger, they're not. And it takes time for them to warm up to it. I want to bring up some of the really typical philosophy and rules and just popular thinking out there that guys have that can really trip you up in this process. So one of them is like, okay, well, it's, first date, we kiss. Okay, well, that's sort of an arbitrary rule. If you guys have a great connection and the kiss doesn't feel right, put it back in Jude's smoker, like wrap that shit up, give it another rub and come back in a week and then open it up and see how it smells, see how it's doing. And even on the second date, it's like, oh man, if she doesn't kiss me on a second date, like no way, like this, she's not into it. She's not putting herself out there. That's looking at it from a very transactional point of view. And it's also looking at it from a predetermined mindset of what this will look like. If there isn't a kiss on the second date, I'm out of here. She's closed off or whatever. that can really get in the way of the process of the transformation that happens inside the smoker.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up the point of all this stuff that's on the internet, game theory, all the other stuff that's there. Take some of that with a grain of salt. If it's going to help you to be more confident in how you're interacting with a woman, that gives you some maybe tips on stuff, that's great. Don't take this stuff as, like you said, well, it's got to be date 1 you kissed, by date 3 she should sleep with me. Like all this crap that's out there, it is completely arbitrary. Every person is unique and different. Each one of you that's listening is unique and different. You bring all your unique and different things from your entire life and your personality to a relationship. The person you're with is all of that too. So when you bring them together, it's its own unique and different relationship. And so you've got to just know that all of what you're just describing, Dallas, is just take it with a grain of salt, and then focus in. If you're focused in on yourself and how you're showing up, and then taking the cues from how she is showing up, and then also communicating, I would say, Dallas, right? Like, you're going to know if you're talking about this stuff or you're creating that environment to where maybe somebody would feel comfortable. You know, is somebody going to feel comfortable if you're like out, you know, hiking and running around to start making out with you? Probably not, right? So don't try to do that. Like, but maybe if you had a romantic dinner and you went for a walk around the lake after or something like that, then maybe there's an opportunity there. So you got to put some thought into that too. And then that makes it, you know, here's another way to think of it. And so I'm so ridiculously, hopelessly romantic to Dallas is when I'm thinking about this, I think, well, there's never going to be another opportunity. There's never going to be another first date with this person. So when I show up for a first date, I'm like, I want this to be a great first date because maybe this is the woman I'm going to marry. And we're going to be telling somebody, maybe our grandkids, who are at least our children right now, or at least my children, about our first date. I want that to be memorable. Same thing, first kiss. I want the first kiss to be memorable. I want these things to be memorable because there's never going to be a second one. There's never going to be a second first date. There's not going to be a second first kiss. There's not going to be a second one of these. And I know it sounds ridiculously romantic, but I feel like if you approach things more intentionally like that, you're going to have a lot better outcomes going forward in all of your interactions. Even if it's a first date that doesn't work out, right? It's still going to be a better experience for both of you.
Yeah. And I think women love it when a man comes to the table with what you just described, meaning you want it to be meaningful. You know, one of the things that is commonly said is women want an emotional experience. When you're looking for these things to feel special, that the likelihood of it being a more emotional experience for her goes up. And I would say there's definitely a paradox because you have to just let it unfold in the moment. And sometimes the quiet moments are the most profound and the most enjoyable. Sometimes, I mean, I think the analogy is a lot like sailing on the ocean. The sailboat, the sailor inside, that's the man. The ocean, that's the woman and everything else going on. You never move in a straight line to where you're going. You set a course, you're trying to get there, but the wind is blowing one way, waves are blowing another way. You have to change course several times. And if you're a good sailor, you will get where you want to go. But you have to accept that this isn't a perfect straight line. You have to let the elements have the impact that they're going to have. And as much as possible, enjoy the paradox, the struggle that you have to do to navigate yourself to get there. And the word I like to use, and I use it all the time, is hold it loosely. You know, it's like if you're expecting a kiss on the first date, if you're expecting sex on the third date, and if this doesn't happen, guys, that's rigid. That is really, really rigid. Women don't like rigid men. Rigid men are scary because what happens when that rigid man finally breaks? She doesn't want to be around for that. Rigid men are not men that women are attracted to. Men that have things that they desire, men that make their move, men that step in and go for the kiss, they are very attracted to those men. But men that are simply following rigid rules, sorry, that's most women are just not into it.
Yep, I agree 100%. All right, so let's recap what we learned from this movie.
Is that even possible?
I think we got
what movie? I've forgotten at this point. What movie we
went from Hollywood to smoking meat, which I think is a I'm just gonna say I think that's a great analogy. But I don't know if there is a linear path of what we learned, but I would say that from the movie with the kind of polarity that they show, that if I'm going to sum up kind of what we talked about today, that there's an in-between of what that movie shows. Again, it's Hollywood. They make crap up. They take some of the most ludicrous parts of things and show those, and then they show a huge polarity and whatnot.
And I think that in between place that Dakota Johnson is looking for is she doesn't want the actor that is still behaving like he's in his 20s when he's in his 30s. And she doesn't want the guy that simply checks all the boxes, but doesn't bring some of the soul and life and adventure. What she wants is a man that fuses the two of those together, which means that the guy that's just following his dreams has to step up his game and make sure that he's bringing the things to the table. And it also means that these ridiculous expectations that social media gives us about how insanely wealthy we have to be are not necessary. You don't have to be that rich for a woman to be very happy with your financial situation. They really don't. It's really finding the right blend of the two together.
Yeah, and I think the word that came to my mind when you were just describing all that is somebody who's real, like a man who's real. And not a real man in the quote, the air quote thing, like I'm a real man, like somebody who's just showing up real. This is who I am. This is my situation. This is what I want. This is where I'm going. This is how I'm trying to do it. I want to share that, have the adventure, love life, love your children. And I think that's probably the majority of the dads that are listening. It's just figuring out how to get there, how to do it, and how to find somebody with it, how to find somebody to do it with. But that's why you got to tune in next week and listen to the next episode, because we'll be covering something else that'll help you do that, right?
Absolutely. And finding that path as a solid man when you're a single dad is just extra hard, extra difficult. But when you come through the other side of that, you are even more solid. After you've had the setback and then you build again, it's even stronger than it was the first time.
And that's so sexy to a woman, and a huge, huge opportunity to model for your kids. But 100%. That's a whole nother conversation. All right,
dude,
Dallas, it was a great conversation. Actually, we did better the second time. So maybe we need to do this every week, like have a half-hour conversation. I don't know if we've got the time to do that. I know I don't. I'm sure you don't. You're a busy man. All right. So how do listeners get a hold of you?
Getting a hold of me, blackboxdating.com. The place you start is really with the group coaching, monthly subscription or annual subscription. That's where you get on board. You get to learn how all of it works. 2-week free trial to test it all out, see how you like it. I only take on private coaching clients, do work in the field with men that have already done a certain amount of group coaching. I've just found that the group coaching is really where guys start. So yeah, check me out there. Jude, same to you. How can people know more about what you do and how they can get all your wisdom?
Yeah, divorced dads, check out thedivorcedadvocate.com. We've got resources there for you, whether you're contemplating divorce, going through divorce, post-divorce. We've got something for you, and we've got resources that span from free to paid to private coaching as well. So check that out at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Dallas, always a pleasure. Look forward to chatting again next week.
Thanks, Jude. See you next week. Bye.
Be the hero of your own movie. If your life was a movie and it started now, forget about whatever financial disasters you've had, personal personal failures, relationship failures, what would the hero of your life's movie do right?